The meeting room on Space Station Nexus Prime was filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Hyunwoo Kim sat quietly at the human table. He wore his best diplomatic suit and carried a briefcase full of documents that nobody wanted to read. The tall blue alien standing at the center podium had 4 arms and cold yellow eyes. High Magistrate Nethkal spoke in the harsh voice typical of the Valdari species. Every word sounded like a threat. "The human trade ships will no longer be permitted in Sector 7, the alien announced. "Human mining operations in the Kepler Belt are hereby terminated. Human merchants are banned from trading with our allied species." Yinwu had listened to speeches like this for 3 long years. Each month brought new restrictions on human business. Each meeting brought new demands that hurt human families trying to make an honest living in space. But the trade problems were not the worst part. The worst part was watching his people die while the galaxy did nothing. Admiral So Young Park floated in her command chair aboard the battleship Gangnam Pride. Through the viewport, she could see dozens of other human warships waiting at the edge of the star system. Her orders from Earth were simple and frustrating. Maintain peace at any cost. The United Earth Coalition had built its reputation on being reasonable. When other species had problems, humans offered to help solve them with words instead of weapons. When pirates attacked trade routes, humans suggested joint patrols instead of hunting expeditions. This peaceful approach had worked well for many years. Other species respected humans for being fair and honest. Human diplomats were trusted to mediate disputes between alien governments. But respect and trust did not stop bullets. Captain Dong Hyun, Lee had learned this lesson 3 weeks ago in the most painful way possible. He commanded a cargo ship called the New Busan, which carried medical supplies to human colonies on the frontier. The ship had been traveling through what was supposed to be safe space when the Valdari raiders found them. Dong Hyun still woke up screaming from dreams about what happened next. "Please do not hurt my crew," he had begged over the radio. "We are carrying medicine for sick children. Take whatever you want, just let us go." The raider commander had laughed. The sound came through the speakers like broken glass. "Humans always beg," the alien said. "It makes this more fun." 43 people worked on the New Busan. They were good people with families back on Earth. The ship's cook, Minjung, was only 19 years old and sending money home to help her parents. The chief engineer, Kyung-soo, had 3 small children who drew him pictures that he kept on his workstation. The raiders killed them all anyway. They took their time doing it. Dong Hyun survived only because the aliens wanted someone left alive to tell the story. They wanted other humans to know what would happen if they traveled in Valdari space. Now Dong Hyun was giving testimony to the Galactic Council through a video connection from his hospital bed. His voice was quiet and shaky as he described watching his friends die. "They shot Minjung while she was trying to hide in the kitchen," he said. "She was just a kid. She never hurt anyone in her whole life." Some of the alien council members looked uncomfortable as he spoke. Others seemed bored, like they were listening to a weather report instead of a description of mass murder. "Kyung-soo tried to surrender 5 different times," Dong Hyun continued. "He kept saying he had children. The raiders thought that was funny. They made jokes about human families. When he finished speaking, the council chamber was quiet for exactly 30 seconds. Then the Zephyrian representative stood up. The Zephyrians usually supported human positions in council debates. "We are deeply sorry for this tragic incident," the alien said in a formal voice. "However, we must remember that isolated acts of violence should not be allowed to destabilize the peace we have worked so hard to build." Isolated incident. Dong Hyun wanted to scream. There had been dozens of attacks on human ships in the past year. Hundreds of innocent people had died. But the council always called them isolated incidents. High Magistrate Nethkal stepped forward to respond. "The Valdari Empire regrets any unfortunate encounters between our citizens and human vessels," it said without any emotion in its voice. "However, human ships often travel in dangerous areas without proper escort. We cannot be responsible for the actions of independent groups." This was always their excuse. When Valdari military ships attacked human freighters, the government claimed they were just pirates acting on their own. When human diplomats demanded justice, Valdari officials said it would be impossible to find the guilty parties. Hyunwoo had been listening to these lies for 3 years. His own brother Jaewoo had died in a Valdari attack just 2 months ago. Jaewoo was a doctor working on a hospital ship that provided free medical care to poor colonies. The raiders had boarded the medical ship and executed the entire medical staff. They shot Jae-woo while he was trying to treat wounded children. But when Hyun-woo demanded justice, the Valdari government said they had no records of any military ships in that area. Despite losing his brother, Hyun-woo had continued following orders from Earth. He kept trying to solve problems with diplomacy. He kept believing that reasonable people could find peaceful solutions. But watching the council members nod along with obvious lies was too much to bear. Hyun-woo stood up slowly. The room became very quiet. Everyone could see that something had changed in his face. His usual diplomatic smile was gone. His eyes looked cold and dangerous. "Honored council members," he began in a calm voice. "For 3 years I have sat in this chamber and listened to your debates. For 3 years I have asked for your help in protecting innocent human lives." He picked up his briefcase and held it in front of him like a shield. "For 3 years I have followed the rules you created. I have been patient when you asked for patience. I have been reasonable when you demanded reasonableness." The other representatives looked confused. What was the human ambassador trying to say? "Today I stop asking for your help," Hyun-woo announced. "The United Earth Coalition officially withdraws from these proceedings. We withdraw from the galactic peace accords that have failed to protect our people." The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens were standing up and shouting in a dozen different languages. Some were angry, others were scared. Nobody had expected this. The Zephyrian representative looked panicked. "Ambassador Kim, please reconsider. Think about what you are saying." But Hyun-woo was already walking toward the exit. He stopped at the door and turned around to face the assembled aliens one last time. "You had 3 years to prevent what comes next," he said in a voice that carried clearly over the shouting. "Every murdered human, every ignored plea for justice, every dismissed cry for help has led to this moment." He opened the door and stepped into the hallway. His parting words echoed in the chamber. "We tried to follow your rules. Your rules failed. Now we follow our own rules." On Earth, President Min Ho-choi was watching the council meeting on a large screen in his office. When Hyun-woo walked out, the president turned to face his military advisors. The room was full of generals and admirals who had been waiting for this moment. They had watched human civilians die while being ordered to show restraint. They had prepared battle plans that were never approved because Earth's leadership always chose diplomacy over action. "Send the activation codes to Admiral Park," President Choi said quietly. "Operation Red Dawn begins now." General Woo Jin-han looked at his commander-in-chief. "Sir, once we start this, there is no going back. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again." President Choi thought about all the reports on his desk. All the families destroyed by alien raiders. All the children who would grow up without parents because the Galactic Council preferred stability over justice. "General, the galaxy stopped looking at us as equals the first time they ignored our calls for help," he replied. "They see us as weak because we choose mercy over vengeance. They mistake our patience for cowardice." He pressed a button on his desk that opened a secure communication channel to Admiral Park's flagship. They are about to learn the difference between choosing not to fight and being unable to fight. Admiral Park had been waiting for this call for 3 years. She had attended too many funerals for crews killed by raiders. She had written too many letters to families explaining why their loved ones died while human warships sat idle. "This is Admiral Park," she answered immediately. "Admiral, this is your president," Min Ho-choi said formally. "The diplomatic phase of our relationship with the galaxy is over. You are authorized to use all necessary force to protect human interests." Admiral Park felt a weight lift from her shoulders that had been there for years. "Sir, what are our rules of engagement?" "There are no rules anymore, Admiral. The Galactic Council made it clear that their rules do not protect humans, so we will protect ourselves." Admiral Park turned to address her bridge crew. Every officer had lost friends or family members to alien attacks. Every one of them had been forced to watch and do nothing while their people died. "Attention all ships," she announced on the fleet communication channel. "This is Admiral Park with new orders from Earth Command. We are no longer bound by the peace accords that other species have repeatedly violated." The news traveled faster than the human warships. Across the galaxy, species that had never given humans much thought were suddenly very interested in where the nearest human fleet might be located. Intelligence Director Young-suk Choi sat in her underground office on Earth, watching data streams from hundreds of worlds. Her job was to monitor alien communications and predict threats to human interests. What she was seeing now was something completely new in galactic history. Director, one of her analysts called out. The Krillian hive state just moved 3 entire battle swarms to their border with human space. Young-suk looked at the tactical display. The Krillians were insect-like aliens who lived in massive hive ships. Each battle swarm contained over 1,000 vessels and millions of warrior drones. They were considered some of the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy. Are they planning to attack us? She asked. No, ma'am, the analyst replied, studying the alien fleet movements. They are taking defensive positions. Our communications intercepts suggest they are terrified that we might attack them next. This pattern was repeating everywhere. The Nexari had recalled their exploration fleets to defend their home systems. The Theta Confederation was building new fortifications along their borders. Even the powerful Draconian Empire was quietly moving ships away from areas where they might encounter human forces. Fear was spreading through space faster than light itself. Captain Seong Ho, Lim was commanding the heavy cruiser Busan Thunder when the surrender message arrived. His ship was patrolling trade routes where pirates had been attacking human merchants for years. The message came from Vextar, the leader of a criminal organization called the Red Claw Syndicate. The lizard-like alien appeared on the communication screen, and Captain Lim could see that the creature was shaking. "Human Commander," Vexitar said in a voice that cracked with fear. "My organization wishes to surrender all of our ships and weapons. We will also provide complete information about other groups that have attacked your people." Captain Lim looked at the pirate leader with disgust. This creature had probably killed dozens of innocent humans over the years. His ships had attacked civilian transports, medical vessels, and cargo freighters carrying food to hungry colonies. "Your surrender is accepted," Captain Lim said coldly. "You will power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded." "But what about our safety?" Vextar asked desperately. "Will you protect us from other criminal groups who might want revenge for our cooperation?" Captain Lim almost laughed. For years, these criminals had shown no concern for the safety of their victims. Human merchants had begged for mercy and received only death. "You will be safe in human custody," he replied, "until your trials are completed." "Trials?" The alien's face went pale. "But we are surrendering. We are giving you information." "Yes, you are surrendering after years of murder," Captain Lim said. "That does not erase what you have done. The families of your victims will have a voice in determining your punishment." The communication ended. Within hours, 15 pirate ships had powered down their weapons and prepared to be captured. Their crews knew that fighting would only make their situation worse. This was happening throughout space. Criminal organizations that had terrorized civilian shipping for decades were suddenly desperate to make peace with humanity. On the planet Altair Prime, President Cordain was learning exactly how much his government had underestimated human capabilities. His intelligence chief had just finished briefing him on the true extent of human military technology. "Sir, our analysis of the battle recordings shows that humans have been hiding their real strength for decades," the intelligence officer reported. "Their weapons are far more advanced than anything we possess." President Cordain stared at the tactical displays showing the destruction in Valdari space. Human forces had completely eliminated a major galactic power in less than 2 weeks. "How is that possible?" he asked. "Our spy networks reported that human military technology was primitive compared to ours. Sir, it appears that humans deliberately allowed us to see only their older, less capable systems. They kept their real military assets completely secret." The president thought about all the times his government had pushed humans around in trade disputes. 6 months ago, Altarian forces had seized 3 human asteroid mining stations. The humans had protested through diplomatic channels, but they had not fought back. At the time, it had seemed like proof that humans were weak and could be bullied safely. Now it looked like proof that humans had incredible self-control. "What are our military options if humans decide to attack us?" President Cordain asked his generals. General Vothak looked at the data from Valdari space. The complete destruction of an entire empire's military forces was sobering evidence of human capabilities. "Sir, we would have no options," he said honestly. "Human forces could destroy our entire fleet before we could mount any meaningful resistance." President Cordain made the hardest decision of his political career. "Contact Earth immediately," he ordered. "Offer full compensation for the mining stations we seized. Return all human property and apologize for any misunderstandings." "Sir," his economic advisor protested, "that will cost us billions of credits." Our people will not understand why we are paying humans for assets we legally seized. The president pointed to the display showing what remained of the Valdari Empire. Our people will understand when I explain the alternative, he said grimly. The most dramatic changes were happening in the Galactic Council itself. Secretary General Vashitai had been the most powerful political figure in the galaxy for almost a decade. Now she was preparing to travel to Earth as a supplicant, hoping that humans would even agree to see her. Vashitai was a tall alien with purple skin and 6 arms. Her species, the Nexari, had dominated galactic politics for over a century. They were known for their wisdom and diplomatic skills. But wisdom had not prevented this war, and diplomacy had failed to protect human lives. She boarded her personal ship with a small staff and began the journey to Earth. During the trip, she reviewed every interaction the Council had ever had with human representatives. The pattern was shamefully clear. Humans had asked for help protecting their civilian ships. The Council had offered to study the problem. Humans had requested justice for murdered families. The Council had suggested forming a committee to investigate. Every human plea for assistance had been met with bureaucratic delays and empty promises. Now those delays had a price, and that price was measured in destroyed fleets and shattered empires. When her ship arrived at Earth, Vashitai was escorted to a simple conference room in an orbital station. President Choi was waiting for her, along with several human officials including Admiral Park, who had been recalled from the fleet to serve as Supreme Commander of Human Forces. Madam Secretary General, President Choi said politely, "Thank you for coming to meet with us." Vashitai had prepared a lengthy speech about the importance of peace and cooperation. But looking at the calm, cold expressions of the human officials, she realized that speeches would accomplish nothing. "Mr. President," she said simply, "we made a terrible mistake. We underestimated your people completely. We thought your patience was weakness and your desire for peace meant you could not wage war." President Choi nodded. Many people made that error in judgment. "The Council is prepared to make significant changes to prevent future conflicts," Vashitai continued. "We will expel the Valdari Empire from the Council. We will impose the strongest economic sanctions in galactic history. That is a good beginning," President Choi replied. "But it is only a beginning." Admiral Park leaned forward in her chair. The war had changed her, making her look older and harder than before. "Madam Secretary General," she said, "for 3 years, human civilians were murdered while your council debated procedures. For 3 years we asked for help and received only empty words and meaningless resolutions." Her voice carried the weight of all the funerals she had attended, all the families she had seen destroyed by alien raiders. "Now you want to negotiate because we have proven we can defend ourselves. But where was this concern when we needed protection?" Vashti felt genuine shame. She remembered dismissing human complaints as minor incidents that should not disrupt galactic stability. She remembered treating human requests for help as annoying distractions from more important business. "What do you want from the Council?" she asked quietly. President Choi handed her a document. "These are our conditions for ending the current military operations and rejoining galactic society." Vashitai read the document with growing alarm. The humans wanted the Valdari leadership delivered for trial. They wanted compensation for every family that had lost someone to alien attacks. They wanted new laws that would make attacking civilian ships a crime punishable by immediate military action. Most importantly, they wanted the right to enforce these laws themselves. "Mr. President," she said carefully, "some of these demands would fundamentally change how galactic government works. You are asking for the right to act as military police throughout space. We are asking for the right to protect our people." President Choi replied, "If the Council had done its job properly, we would not need to do it ourselves." 6 months had passed since the Valdari Empire stopped existing. The galaxy looked the same on star charts, but everything else had changed completely. The old rules were gone, replaced by new ones written in human blood and enforced by human ships. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim stood at the podium in the reformed Galactic Council chambers. The name had been changed because the old council had failed so badly that keeping the same name would have been an insult to everyone who died while waiting for justice. Behind him, large displays showed human patrol ships moving through space that used to belong to the Valdari, but these were not invasion fleets. They were protection fleets, keeping safe the millions of former Valdari civilians who were learning to live without their murderous government. Honored representatives, Hyunwoo began, looking out at the alien delegates who now hung on his every word. Humanity never wanted to become the galaxy's police force. We wanted to be friends, partners, and allies building a better future together. Every alien in the chamber was listening carefully. Gone were the days when representatives would check their messages during human speeches or talk quietly among themselves. They had learned that ignoring humans was dangerous. But friendship requires respect, he continued. And respect, we discovered, sometimes requires demonstration. In the audience, Prime Minister Velandra of the Catherian Republic nodded in agreement. Her people had watched the war with great interest. They had seen something unprecedented, a species that could be both merciful and terrifying at the same time. Humans had destroyed Valdari military forces without hesitation or mercy. But they had also spent millions of credits feeding Valdari refugees who had no connection to the attacks on human ships. They built hospitals for wounded civilians and hired former Valdari engineers to help rebuild damaged colonies. The humans showed a surgical precision in applying justice. Prime Minister Velandra had told her parliament. They knew exactly who deserved punishment and who deserved protection. Fleet Admiral Tae Min-yoon was now in command of something called the Human Peacekeeping Force. It was a new military organization designed to protect civilian ships and colonies. Anywhere in the galaxy, any species could request human protection for their trade routes. The cost was reasonable and the service was excellent. Pirates who had terrorized space lanes for decades were now either dead or hiding in the deepest corners of. Space Admiral Yoon was reviewing reports in his office on the command station New Seoul. The station had been built where the Valdari fortress Moon Kethvar used to exist. It was both a practical military base and a symbolic reminder of what happened to those who murdered innocents. Sir, his aide reported, the Altarian cargo convoy that was attacked last week has been avenged. What was the outcome? Admiral Yoon asked. All pirate vessels destroyed. No survivors among the raiders. We evacuated the civilian workers from their base before destroying it. Admiral Yoon made a note in his daily log. Under the old system, those pirates would have been arrested after months of investigation. They would have spent years in comfortable prisons while lawyers argued about jurisdiction and evidence. Under the new system, pirates who attacked civilian ships died quickly and cleanly. Any requests from the families of the convoy crew? He asked. Yes, sir. The Altarian government has asked us to extend our protection services to their entire outer rim. They are offering to pay triple our normal rates. This was happening everywhere. Species that used to handle their own security problems were begging humans to do it for them. It cost more than doing it themselves, but it was much more effective and absolutely reliable. Captain Dong Hyun Lee had been given a new ship and a new mission. His cargo vessel had been destroyed in the attack that started the war, but the Earth government had offered him command of something much bigger and more important. The ship was called the New Busan Memorial, named after his destroyed freighter. It was a hospital ship that traveled throughout the galaxy, providing free medical care to anyone who needed it regardless of their species or ability to pay. Captain Lee was standing on the bridge, looking down at a refugee camp on the planet below. Thousands of former Valdari civilians were living in temporary shelters built by human engineers with human resources. Captain, his medical officer reported, the camp leaders want to meet with you. They wish to thank us for the food shipments and medical supplies. Captain Lee remembered the day his crew was murdered by Valdari raiders. He remembered their laughter as they killed innocent people. But he also remembered what his mother had taught him. Hatred was poison that hurt the person carrying it more than anyone else. Tell them I will meet with them this afternoon, he said, and ask the kitchen staff to prepare extra meals for the children in the camp. His medical officer looked surprised. Sir, these are the same people whose government killed your crew. No, Captain Lee corrected gently. These are civilians who had nothing to do with piracy or murder. The people who killed my crew are dead. These people are just trying to survive and rebuild their lives. He looked down at the camp where alien children were playing games while their parents worked to build a better future. Besides, he added, someone needs to show them what humanity really looks like when we are not fighting for our lives. Back on Earth, President Choi was reading intelligence reports in his office. Director Young-suk Choi had just finished briefing him on the current state of galactic politics. Sir, piracy in human-protected space has been completely eliminated, she reported. Trade disputes involving human companies are being resolved immediately before they can escalate. Most importantly, no human civilian has been harmed in an unprovoked attack for 6 months. President Choi nodded with satisfaction. What about the other species? How are they adapting to the new reality? Most are adapting very well, Director Choi replied. The Altarians have completely reformed their military procedures to avoid any conflicts with human interests. The Zephyrians are asking for help training their security forces using human methods. She pulled up another report. Even former Valdari colonies are requesting to join our protection program. They prefer human security to trying to defend themselves. President Choi looked at the data showing peaceful trade routes and safe shipping lanes throughout human-protected space. What about resistance? Are there still groups that think they can challenge our authority? Very few, sir. Last month, the Omega Cartel tested our response by attacking a civilian station just outside our official patrol area. And our response? Admiral Park sent a squadron to investigate. The cartel ships were destroyed within minutes. We also tracked down their main base and eliminated it completely. Survivors? None among the combatants. We did evacuate civilian workers and their families before destroying the base. President Choi made a note in his personal log. The new policy was working exactly as intended. Criminal organizations were learning that attacking any civilians under human protection meant total destruction of their operations. That evening, President Choi was having dinner with his family when his daughter called from her cargo ship. Su Jin was still working as a freight pilot, but now she flew under the protection of human military patrols. Dad, she said over the video connection, I wanted to thank you for what you did. What do you mean? 6 months ago, I was afraid every time I left port. Every cargo run could have been my last trip. Pirates were everywhere and nobody seemed to care about protecting civilian ships. She smiled and President Choi could see that she looked confident and happy. Now I feel completely safe. All the civilian pilots feel safe. We can do our jobs without worrying about being murdered by criminals who know they will never face justice. President Choi looked at his daughter's face on the screen. This was what he had been fighting for. The right of innocent people to live their lives without fear. You do not need to thank me, he said. Protecting our people is what governments are supposed to do. I am ashamed that it took us so long to do it properly. After the call ended, President Choi walked to his window and looked out at the city lights below. The view looked the same as it had 6 months ago, but everything had changed. The galaxy had learned that human patience was not the same as human weakness. They had discovered that choosing not to fight was different from being unable to fight. Most importantly, they had learned that there were serious consequences for murdering innocent people. His aide brought him the final report of the day. Sir, Ambassador Kim's speech at the Reformed Council was very well received. Several species have formally requested human mediation for their territorial disputes. President Choi smiled. They are learning that it is much better to solve problems with words before those problems require military solutions. Yes, sir. There is one more item. The memorial service for the new Busan crew is scheduled for next week. Captain Lee has requested that you speak at the ceremony. President Choi felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. I will be honored to speak. Those people died because we failed to protect them. The least we can do is make sure they are remembered, and that their deaths led to something better. The next morning, Admiral Park was reviewing fleet deployment schedules when her communication officer brought her an interesting message. Captain Jiwon Nam stood on the bridge of her warship and stared at the planet below. Valdari Prime was a beautiful world with blue oceans and white clouds. It looked peaceful from space, but Jiwon knew that the aliens living on that world had spent years laughing while humans died. Her ship was called the Soul's Vengeance. The name had seemed dramatic when the ship was first built 5 years ago. Now it felt perfectly appropriate. 50 human warships hung in space around the Valdari home system. For 3 years, ships like these had patrolled the edges of alien space with strict orders not to fight, unless attacked first. Those orders were gone now. Communications, open a channel to the planet, Jiwon ordered. Her communication officer was a young woman named Hee Jin. She had joined the Navy after raiders killed her father's cargo ship crew. Channel open, Captain. Jiwon looked directly into the camera. She knew that millions of Valdari were watching her broadcast. Their military leaders were probably laughing at the small human woman, trying to look threatening. They would not be laughing much longer. "This is Captain Jiwon Nam of the Human Defense Fleet," she said in a clear, cold voice. "You have exactly 72 hours to evacuate all non-essential personnel from your military installations." She paused to let that sink in. Around the bridge, her crew worked quietly at their stations. They all knew what was coming. "We are no longer bound by the peace treaties that you have violated repeatedly," Jiwon continued. "We are no longer required to show mercy to people who showed none to our families. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. On the planet below, War Chief Velthok was meeting with his senior officers in an underground command bunker. The massive alien had scars covering his face and arms from decades of battle. He was considered one of the finest military minds in the galaxy. "The humans are trying to frighten us again," he told his staff. "They make threats, but they never follow through. It is their nature to be weak." His intelligence officer, a smaller alien named Kurdax, looked worried. "War Chief, their fleet formation is different this time, and they have never withdrawn from the peace accords before." Velthok waved one of his forearms dismissively. "Political theater. The humans want to look strong for their own people, but they will not actually start a war. They care too much about their reputation as peacekeepers." He walked to a wall display showing human ship positions. Besides, even if they were serious, what could they do? The peace accords limit them to proportional responses. If they kill one of our soldiers, they can only kill one of theirs. The war chief was an expert on human military doctrine. He had studied their tactics for 30 years. Humans always tried to minimize casualties on both sides. They preferred capturing enemies to killing them. They went out of their way to avoid harming civilians. These behavioral patterns made them predictable and easy to defeat. But Velthok had made one critical error in his analysis. He assumed that humans fought the way they did because they were naturally weak. He never considered that they might be choosing to show restraint. Admiral Tae Min-yoon commanded the entire human fleet from his flagship, the Incheon Fury. He was 60 years old and had spent his entire adult life in the Navy. For most of that time, he had been forced to watch human civilians die while being ordered not to retaliate. Those orders were gone now. "Sir, 72 hours have elapsed," his tactical officer reported. Admiral Yoon looked at his chronometer. The time was 1547 Earth Standard. He would remember this moment for the rest of his life. This was the moment when humanity stopped pretending to be weak. "All ships, this is Admiral Yoon," he announced on the fleet communication channel. "You are authorized to engage all military targets. Rules of engagement are as follows. Destroy everything that can shoot back." The first target was a fortress moon called Kethvar. The small rocky satellite was covered with weapon platforms, shield generators, and sensor arrays. Under the old rules, humans would have spent weeks trying to disable the defenses without killing the 40,000 soldiers stationed there. The new rules were much simpler. 12 human ships fired antimatter missiles at the moon simultaneously. Each missile carried enough destructive power to level a major city. The combined impact was like setting off a dozen suns at the same time. The explosion was visible from other star systems. When the light faded, there was nothing left where Kethvar used to orbit. The moon had been completely vaporized along with everyone on it. War Chief Velthok stared at his tactical display in shock. The readings had to be wrong. Humans did not fight like that. They did not just erase entire installations from existence. "Get me a status report from Kethvar," he ordered. His communication officer worked frantically at his console. "Sir, I cannot reach them. All communication channels are dead." "Then send a reconnaissance ship to investigate." "Sir, there is nothing to investigate. The moon is gone." Velthok felt something cold settle in his stomach. For the first time in his military career, he was genuinely afraid. Colonel Yoon-ji Song was leading ground troops on the planet Thresh Prime. The world hosted the most prestigious military academy in the Valdari Empire. Thousands of young aliens came here every year to learn how to become officers. Under the old rules, human forces would have surrounded the academy and demanded surrender. They would have tried to capture the facilities intact and treat prisoners according to galactic law. Yoon-ji had different orders now. "All civilian personnel have 10 minutes to evacuate," she announced over loudspeakers. "Teachers, maintenance staff, cooks, medical personnel. Anyone not wearing a military uniform may leave safely." Her soldiers formed a perimeter around the academy while frightened aliens ran out of the buildings. Most of them were civilians who just worked there. Humans had no quarrel with them, but the military students and officers would receive no mercy. Colonel, her second-in-command, asked, "What about the cadets? Some of them are just children." Yunji looked at the academy through her binoculars. She could see young Valdari in military uniforms moving around inside the buildings. They were probably scared and confused. "Sergeant, those children are being trained to kill humans," she replied. "They are being taught that we are weak and pathetic. They are learning to laugh while murdering our families." She lowered her binoculars and looked at her soldiers. Every one of them had lost someone to Valdari attacks. "Today they learn what weakness actually looks like," she said. The battle for the academy lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the buildings were still standing. But every person inside wearing a military uniform was dead. News of the attack spread across the galaxy at light speed. The Galactic Council held an emergency session within hours of the first reports reaching Nexus Prime. Chancellor Mordoon of the Altarian Federation was nearly hysterical. "The humans have gone completely insane," he shouted. "They destroyed an entire moon. They killed thousands of people without even trying to negotiate." But before the council could organize a response, every screen in the chamber activated. General Wu Jinhan appeared on the displays, broadcasting from his command ship. Behind the general, human officers worked calmly at their stations. Tactical screens showed Valdari ships being destroyed in real time. The humans looked professional and efficient, not like bloodthirsty monsters. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," General Han said politely, "you seem surprised by our actions. I find this curious." He gestured to a data display. "For 3 years we have filed formal complaints about attacks on human civilians. We have submitted evidence of war crimes. We have begged for your intervention." The council chamber was completely silent. The response was always the same. General Han continued, "You told us to be patient. You said that violence would not solve anything. You reminded us that we must think about galactic stability." His voice became harder. "So we were patient while our people died. We avoided violence while watching our families get murdered. We worried about galactic stability, while the Valdari destabilized entire sectors with their attacks." He leaned forward and looked directly into the camera. "But patience has limits, even human patience." The transmission switched to show footage from Valdari military communications. The recordings were 6 months old, from when raiders attacked the medical ship carrying Dr. Park Jae-woo. In the recordings, Valdari officers could be heard laughing while they shot doctors and nurses. They made jokes about how human begging sounded. They placed bets on which humans would cry before dying. The council members watched in horrified silence as the evidence of systematic cruelty played out on their screens. "This is what you protected with your calls for patience," General Han said. "This is what you preserved with your concerns about proportional response." The recordings ended and General Han reappeared. "We followed your rules for 3 years," he said. "Your rules failed to protect a single human life. So now we follow our own rules." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Vice Admiral Subin Kim was hunting the main Valdari battle fleet near the Kalar Nebula. The enemy ships were trying to escape to neutral space where they hoped galactic law would protect them. But galactic law had not protected humans, so humans no longer felt bound by it. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from dozens of species crowded into the chamber on Nexus Prime. Some were shouting in panic. Others sat in stunned silence. All of them were trying to understand how the galaxy had changed so quickly. Chancellor Mordoon of the Altarian Federation slammed his gavel repeatedly, but nobody paid attention. The usual order and dignity of council proceedings had vanished along with the Valdari war fleet. "We must restore calm," he shouted over the noise. "We must find a way to stop this madness." But there was no calm to restore. The reports coming from Valdari space were impossible to believe. An entire empire's military forces had been destroyed in less than a week. The species that everyone thought of as peaceful negotiators had become ruthless killers overnight. The main display screen showed a tactical map of former Valdari territory. Every red dot represented a human fleet position. There were red dots everywhere. They have eliminated 70% of Valdari military assets. the military analyst reported in a shaky voice. Their advance has been faster than any conquest in galactic history. But how? Demanded the Krillian representative. His species were warriors who lived for battle. The Valduri were strong fighters. Their ships were well-armed and well-trained. The analyst pulled up combat recordings captured by long-range sensors. The humans are not fighting according to any known tactical doctrine. They are not trying to capture territory or resources. They are simply destroying everything military they encounter. The recordings showed human ships attacking Valdari installations with weapons that made the Watchers flinch. There were no attempts at negotiation, no offers to surrender, no mercy for defeated enemies. "This is not warfare," whispered the Zephyrian delegate. "This is extermination." Chancellor Morden finally managed to restore some order to the chamber. "We must contact the human leadership immediately," he declared. "We must make them understand that this cannot continue." Within minutes, a communication channel was opened to General Wu Jin Han, who was commanding human forces from his flagship. The general appeared on the main screen, looking calm and professional despite the ongoing battle shown on displays behind him. "General Han," Chancellor Morden began, "the Galactic Council demands that you cease these attacks immediately. Your actions are destabilizing the entire galaxy." General Han looked at the Chancellor for a long moment. Then he did something that made several council members step backward. He smiled. "Chancellor Morden," he said in a pleasant voice, "you are concerned about galactic stability. I find that interesting." The general gestured to someone off-screen, and tactical displays appeared showing human casualty reports from the past 3 years. "Were you concerned about stability when Valdari raiders destroyed the cargo ship New Sol, killing 47 humans including 6 children? That was 8 months ago." Chancellor Mordoon opened his mouth to respond, but General Han continued. "Were you concerned about stability when they attacked the medical station on Kepler 7, murdering 32 doctors and nurses? That was 6 months ago." The human officer's voice remained calm, but his eyes were cold as winter. "Were you concerned about stability when they boarded the passenger liner Happy Return and executed 138 civilians for sport? That was 3 months ago." Each incident he mentioned had been reported to the council. Each time, the response had been the same. Expressions of regret, calls for patience and no action. "General," the Chancellor said weakly, "those were tragic incidents, but we cannot solve every problem with violence." "You are right," General Han replied. "Violence should not be the first solution to problems. It should be the last solution when all others have failed." He leaned forward and his image filled the screen. "We tried your solutions for 3 years, Chancellor. We filed reports. We followed procedures. We waited patiently while our people died. Your peaceful methods failed to save a single human life." The communication channel switched to show recordings from Valdari military networks. The humans had captured these during their attacks on command centers. The recordings were horrifying. Valdari officers could be seen planning attacks on human civilian targets. They discussed which ships would be most fun to destroy. They laughed about human families begging for mercy. "This is what your patience protected," General Han said as the recordings played. "This is what your diplomatic process preserved." One recording showed a Valdari commander giving orders to his raiders. "Make sure the humans suffer before you kill them," he said. "Their government will send angry letters, but they will do nothing else. They are too weak to fight back." The council chamber fell completely silent as the evidence of systematic cruelty played out before them. "You had 3 years to stop this," General Han said when the recordings ended. "Every day you delayed, more humans died. Every meeting where you decided to study the situation cost us more innocent lives." The transmission ended, leaving the council members staring at blank screens. Commander Jeho Park was floating in space inside his stealth ship, the Ghost of Jeju. His vessel was invisible to most sensors, which made it perfect for intelligence gathering. Right now, he was deep inside Valdari computer networks, copying their secret communications. What he found there made him sick to his stomach. "Captain," his intelligence officer called out, "you need to see these files." On the main screen, hundreds of documents appeared. They were planning records from Valdari military headquarters. The documents showed that attacks on human civilians had not been random acts of piracy. They had been official policy. The Valdari government had been deliberately targeting human ships to test how Earth would respond. They wanted to see if humans really were as weak as they appeared. Send all of this to every news network in the galaxy, Commander Park ordered. Let everyone see what kind of people we are fighting. The leaked documents spread across galactic communication networks within hours. The evidence was overwhelming. The Valdari Empire had been systematically murdering human civilians as part of a military strategy. Public opinion began to shift dramatically. Species that had criticized human aggression started to understand why the war had begun. Ambassador Kirtos of the Zephyrian Empire was racing toward Earth in his fastest ship. The Zephyrians had been close allies of humanity for decades. They had to find a way to stop this war before it consumed the entire galaxy. Arrived at Earth's orbital station, and was immediately escorted to a meeting with Foreign Minister Hyejin Lee. The small human woman sat across from him in a plain conference room, but her presence filled the space like a barely contained storm. Minister Lee, Ambassador Kirtos began, your people have proven their point. The galaxy understands now that humans are not weak. The Council will take action against the Valdari leadership. Foreign Minister Lee looked at him with eyes like chips of ice. Ambassador, what point do you think we were trying to prove? That humans can fight back when threatened. That your species demands respect. Minister Lee stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth. The blue planet looked peaceful and beautiful, but Kirtos knew that this world had just unleashed something terrible upon the galaxy. Ambassador, she said quietly, we were not trying to prove anything. We were trying to save lives. She turned back to face him. Our point was made 3 years ago when we asked for protection from raiders. Our point was made 2 years ago when we begged for justice. After the hospital ship massacre, her voice became harder with each word. Our point was made 1 year ago when we pleaded with the Council to arrest the criminals who were hunting our people for sport. Do you remember the Council's response? Ambassador Kirtos shifted uncomfortably. The Council said it would be difficult to determine jurisdiction over interstellar criminals. Difficult, Minister Lee repeated. Too difficult to save human lives, but apparently not too difficult to save Valdari ones. She sat back down and folded her hands on the table. This is not about proving points anymore, Ambassador. This is about consequences. Kirtos tried a different approach. But Minister, surely you do not want to destroy an entire species. The Valdari Empire has billions of innocent civilians. We are not targeting civilians, Minister Lee replied. We are targeting the military forces and government, officials who ordered the murder of our people. But the economic disruption alone will cause massive suffering among innocent Valdari. Minister Lee's expression became even colder. Ambassador, do you know how many innocent humans are suffering right now because Valdari raiders killed their families? Do you know how many human children will grow up without parents because of Valdari policy decisions? She leaned forward. For 3 years, the Council warned us that fighting back would cause suffering. But somehow the Council never worried about the suffering caused by doing nothing. On the planet Altair Prime, President Cordain was having the worst crisis of his political career. His military advisors were bringing him reports that he did not want to hear. Sir, our intelligence indicates that human forces are more powerful than we ever imagined, General Vothak reported. Their weapons technology is decades ahead of what we thought they possessed.